Now we have a tradition of like, whenever we come to celebrate you, we'll also bring somebody who is among us, who is a member of the community at large, to come and share their experiences with you, so that you know the journey you are on is extremely important. And there are people by your side to hold your hand and help out until you get to where you are going. Tonight is no different. But for me, the reason why it is special is that I am bringing on a brother, somebody who was my junior in college, with all the respect, all the love. Today, if I see him, people calling him Dr. Thiam, you cannot even begin to understand how proud that makes me, because I knew it is not a mistake. I knew it was not something that would be a surprise. As a young student back in the day, he was one of the best of his class. And when I say best, it doesn't mean that some people will come on top and he comes next. No, he was always top of his class, period. If you talk about seriousness, you can trust this guy with your life. So it is my honor and my privilege to introduce a brother of mine, Professor, Dr. Professor, I mean, the titles are many, Mr. Thiam, who is currently a professor of political science and international relations at the University of Tuskegee. Dr. Thiam graduated in 1999 from the University of Cheikh Anta Diop in Senegal with flying colors, with high distinction. When he came here to study in 2000, you know, it wouldn't take him long for him to just get any kinds of degrees that a student would get. He's been teaching for the last 12 years at the University of Tuskegee, where he is also the chair of the Department of History and Political Science. He is also the co-director of the Integrative Public Policy and Development. I mean, I can go on and on, but it's suffice to say that his academic activities really span across many, many universities in the US, including the University of Maryland, including the University of Purdue, including Howard University, where all of these he went to lecture. But his lectures also went international. He taught in Africa, he taught in Asia, he taught in Latin America. But the most important of all, recently, CPAN actually brought him among many other scholars to be in part of a group whose task was to study the effectiveness of the leadership of all 45 presidents of the United States. Dr. Thiam was part of that group. But what really warms my heart is the day he called me and said, brother, I would like to run for president. And today he is a presidential candidate for the elections in Senegal in 2024. Dr. Thiam, maybe I left something, and of course I did, but it just honors me to call you my brother and to welcome you on this platform. Dr. Thiam, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much for the generous introduction, Professor Majama. Thank you, Mr. Ba, and thank you, Mr. Dia, for the vision, because indeed it takes a vision to change the world. In his introduction, Professor Majama said something that actually I took note of. The fact that he told us that he's not impressed by the number of people who enter the program, but he's more impressed by the number of people who finish the program. That is the process that produces leaders. I would like to begin my story tonight with a story on the leadership of a butterfly. A man had on his backyard a tree. And from the tree, basically, he had been observing for hours a cocoon with a little incision, a butterfly trying to come out. He observed for about a couple of hours, noticing the struggle that the butterfly was going through to come out, and the butterfly was not coming out. When he really felt sorry for the butterfly, he went and grabbed a pair of scissors to cut it, so the butterfly was able to come out. But the butterfly was able to come out. He noticed something, that the butterfly was swollen, and the butterfly fell right onto the ground to live a very short, miserable, and painful life and died. What the man did not understand is that that struggle for the butterfly to come out of the cocoon is part of what makes the butterfly strong and survive. Because as the butterfly fights its way out and struggles into the cocoon, then it forces the fluids into his body, out of his body, into his wings, allowing the butterfly to be strong enough to fly. That is a lesson about process. You need to let your students struggle through the process, because if they come out stronger. And if they come, then they're able to serve you, me, and the rest of the community. That is a part of the process. Today, I would like to start my story with 3 key dates. The first one is 2000, the year 2000. The second is the year 2014. And the third is 2021. In 2014, I will actually put it in the middle, leave it all the way to the end. But I will begin with 2000. That is the story of an immigrant, of somebody who came from Senegal. And you hear so often stories of immigrants saying, I came here with $100 in my pocket, $200 in my pocket. And I live to remind people that I came here on a negative balance because I couldn't afford the plane ticket. I had to borrow it. But coming here, I knew exactly what it is that brought me here and why I wanted to come to this country to begin with. I'll go back 4 years earlier, sitting at the University of Dakar as a freshman. By then, actually, we didn't have TVs in our rooms. There was a general area with a TV station. I had just eaten dinner, walked into that room, and heard this guy speak. By then, actually, I was just beginning to learn English, but I heard enough to make sense out of what he was saying. He was an African-American talking about the crisis in Rwanda, talking about the genocide in Rwanda, and explaining in words that I could clearly remember that the world let this happen because it was a bunch of Black people killing each other. And the world had assigned values to Black people. They had defined Blackness. Therefore, Blackness had no value. I got out of that room saying, this man spoke the truth. And I saw the title underneath him. They said, Professor of Political Science. That was the day when I decided, this is what I'm going to study, because I want to be one of those who are going to contribute, even modestly, to making this world slightly a better place. You see, I've never understood one concept. I have great respect for medical doctors. I have great respect for engineers, but with all due respect, if a medical doctor makes a mistake, one person goes at a time, the patient on the table. If an engineer makes a mistake, it depends. If the mistake is on a car, the number of passengers can go. If the mistake is on a bridge, the number of cars on those bridges can go. But those involved with social engineering, with political engineering, when they make mistakes, we are talking about generations at a time. So we need to invest in thinking about those issues in a very, very different light. Thinking about this is why also I really give you again credit for putting your emphasis on training the human mind, on giving that leadership character that people need to make this world a better place. And this is why my conversation today will be structured around what I call the multiple powers of one. Train one and you are going to train human civilization, because people need to stand. My learning about history is that great transformations were engineered by people who were not afraid to stand alone, even if at that time everybody thought they were wrong. Not too far from where I sit today, when a young lady, relatively young, just 42 years of age, named Rosa Parks, who happened to be born in the city where I am, decided that she was not going to give up her seat on that day, it was a vision. It was a vision not only about that particular tiny and narrow seat, but it was about the future seats in history, the future seats that would today be occupied by countless leaders among African Americans, among Africans, the countless judges you have today that are Black, the countless politicians you have that are Black, the countless engineers, doctors, lawyers that are Black, because they were inspired by that one single act. And also the first African-American woman Supreme Court justice that we're about to have. We owe it to the courage, in a sense, of that woman. When a 26-year-old preacher decided on the back of that event that he was going to lead what I consider to be the most significant civil rights movement in history, I mean Dr. Martin Luther King, he was reaffirming the multiple powers of one. When a little bit farther from where we are, a gentleman called Nelson Mandela decided that against a system that denied dignity on the basis of race, he was ready to spend 27 years of his life in solitary confinement. He was once again reaffirming the multiple powers of one. Do not be afraid to stand alone. It takes people who decide to stand alone to change society. You see, as a leader, there are characteristics that we have to think about. We have to be lions and we have to be eagles. We have to adopt certain attitudes, and we should not let anybody define us. Because when we allow people to define us, then we fall into what we are today. The second year that I want to talk about, 2021. In May of last year, I opened my mailbox to an invitation from C-SPAN, asking me to be a part of a handful of scholars, political scientists, historians, media observers, with a formidable mission to evaluate the past 45 US presidents on the basis of 4 dimensions of effectiveness, from administrative skills to international relations, to moral authority, and yes, to the idea that they pursued equal justice for all. I shocked my colleagues. And again, I take you back to that year when I saw that professor speak, and I knew he was speaking the truth. The 12 US presidents, remember, one of the dimensions is moral authority. I came immediately and I gave all of them 1 on that set of criteria. I gave them 1 because there was no option to give them 0. I would have given them 0. So automatically the question became why? And of course you can see why, because all 12 presidents, they happen to be slave owners. And my obligation as a Black man, being a part of that committee, was to stand alone and in the process educate the rest. And some of them ended up understanding why. If you have values, you understand that it doesn't matter what period of time a human being lived, owning a human being is wrong. And I don't care if it is the 1st century before Christ or the 21st century after Christ. And they had to learn that lesson from me. So you have to stand alone and you have to reaffirm your values, no matter what the circumstances are and no matter where you are. Don't let anybody define you. 2014, I opened my mailbox. So the 2014 and 2021 marked basically the experience, that process that I was talking about, from somebody who came here on a negative balance to now essentially being a part of the academic and intellectual establishment. 2014, I opened my mailbox to a CNN invitation to appear on the Chris Cuomo show. And it was at a time when the world and Africa in particular, West Africa, was struggling with the Ebola crisis. I want to read to you what I wrote in response to CNN's request for me to appear. Because you have to understand, they were trying to get somebody to speak to the general narrative of Africa being about disease, being about hunger, that certain framework that Africa must be fitted into. And here is what I responded. Good afternoon, Ms. Richmond, because that was his assistant. Thank you for the invitation. I will have my hands on the switch 24 hours until next week when my students return from Liberia. At that time, I will be open for further discussions. One discussion that will hopefully open the windows to a larger and more helpful picture about Africa. Today, entire sets of African countries are substantially transforming their institutional governance frameworks, especially by means of setting more accountable democratic governments, stemming the tides of corruption, designing and putting in motion more sensible and pragmatic economic policies, creating a broader and more binding sense of justice and trust in the system, among other things. And I told them, Liberia perhaps encapsulates this concept of African Renaissance. This is why I chose Liberia as an avenue for my students to see firsthand the nature and dynamics of positive institutional change. Remember at that time, the president of Liberia was Johnson Sirleaf, a transformational woman. And then I told them, then Ebola hit. It would be a missed opportunity if the story becomes all about Ebola. I would be happy to work with your network on the most meaningful aspects of the nature, the dynamics, and the drivers of those transformational events that are taking place in Africa, beyond the crisis of Ebola. This, in a sense, might constitute a moment, for a formidable platform, for the formidable platform that is CNN, and the opportunity that is Africa on Demand, that is an Africa on Demand. Putting a spotlight on the best practices in Africa has the potential to inspire further positive transformations around the continent and uplift millions of human beings in the process. I hope CNN will accept this challenge to be a part of and a driver of this decisive era in the history of the African continent. Do not be defined and refuse to be defined. Because you see, many of us just decide, after all, I'm just one person in the sea and in the multitude of an impossible dilemma. Why should I bother? Well, I'm here to tell you, you should bother. You should bother in the same way some of the symbols of Africa bother, like an eagle would bother, like a lion would bother. Why am I giving you the examples of these two animals? Because they have characteristics that you can learn from. The first one, you take an example of an eagle. An eagle always chooses his company. Refuse to be with people who will bring you down by their sheer negative energy. Stay with positive people. Stay with people who will lift you up. Because the one thing I know, in the words of Booker T. Washington, somebody cannot bring you down without staying down with you. And I would add, if somebody wants to fly high, be with them because you'll fly with them. You are the company you keep. And the second greatest attitude that I see, the second greatest characteristic that I see in an eagle that is also shared by a lion is the vision. You know, an eagle is known to have a 5-kilometer radius once it sets its eyes on the prize. And nothing can deviate the eagle from that prize once the course is set. And the eagle will wait patiently for whatever it takes for that goal to be attained. So set your goals and stay with them. Do not accept distractions. When I came here some 20 years ago, I knew I wanted to be a faculty member. Things happen in life. Every once in a while, you got to get out of school, go do some stuff. You got to get out of your job, go do some stuff, but keep in mind that the longer term vision is this, and I'm ready to do whatever it takes. And the third idea about an eagle and a lion is that, you know, ordinary people, they see challenges and they run away and they basically disappear. But if you know an eagle, you know one thing about an eagle is as the storm gathers, the eagle gets even more excited. Why? Because the eagle sees it as an opportunity to fly even higher, to get into greater altitude so that it can get even stronger. And those who know lions, they do not hunt without a noise. The greater the amount of noise, the more opportunity they see. Today, we live in a world that is beset by those storms. We should learn to see them in terms of the opportunities they represent. How can we seize the moment to make people's lives better? How can we see the storm that gathers all around Africa and become those agents of change and decide the kind of Africa we want and say we are sick and tired of having an Africa, the home. And I don't care if you are African, African-American, or Caribbean. The idea is Africa is the home base, and all of us have a responsibility to build it. As a Black man and as a Black woman, the way society will judge us, the way the world will judge us, will always be in relation to what we have managed to build in Africa, nowhere else. Because we are Black, therefore Africans, and that has to be understood. And then for that actually to be successful, it brings me to my fourth point. An eagle doesn't eat that meat, and there's a great amount of symbolism in it. Leave the past to where it belongs. Let's not be nostalgic people. Let us not accept to live in the past. Let us always seek new horizons and new frontiers. Explore new ideas, be futuristic, and decide that our way forward is into the future, not into the past. You see, an eagle understands it to the point where even with the little eaglets, there's something magnificent that happens in the nest. Every single day, the mother eagle will come and take the softest spots in that nest, throw them away. What is the lesson in that? The mother eagle is trying to make the eaglets so uncomfortable that it becomes inevitable that they will seek to fly on their own wings. Refuse to be uncomfortable. Refuse to be comfortable and accept the notion that you have to be uncomfortable. Because after all, there is no way you can grow without being uncomfortable. The eagle takes it to the next dimension. When the eagle starts getting weak and old, it does something that is rather extraordinary. It plucks out all of its soft feathers, throw them away until it is almost bare, goes against rock, breaks its own beak, breaks its own jaws, and does something else that is extraordinary, goes in hiding in the highest altitudes until a new beak emerges, until a new jaw emerges, until new feathers emerge so that it can get out, fly even higher and be stronger. Let us refuse to be comfortable. Once again, thank you very much. I appreciate your time.
Now that was a lecture. Professor Dr. Thiam, you know, I don't know, I should not be commenting on this at all, other than I am extremely proud. You know, I haven't seen Dr. Thiam for about 25 years. Until last year, we met in Indianapolis. When we met that day, it was like we had dinner the previous night. Just to tell you that good relationship lasts forever. I could remember clearly as yesterday when he was coming to my dorm room every afternoon. So this is more than Uzi, just take it away. I'm really emotional right now, and you guys would understand why.